Peace and blessings, YouTube. The Ripper here. It's always an honor, privilege, and pleasure to come before you in truth and righteousness. This evening, I want to talk about psychological warfare. What is this psychological warfare? What is the root of psychological warfare that every human being has to deal with? Every human being. What is psychological warfare? What is the root and what are the root causes of psychological warfare? What is this conscious guilt that people may feel by dealing with their dealings with other people, their relationships, interpersonal relationships and dealings with other people in this universe? What causes this psychological warfare and or damage? If we truly believe we're living right, if according to a particular standard, if we truly believe we're living right, if we truly believe that we're living in uplift and truth, living our truth, then what is this psychological damage that the branches of that lead to misery, stress, depression, anxiety, grief? What is this? This is psychological chastisement. When you're one who experiences that, you can't find peace or happiness. That is your conscious communicating with you to let you know you're off somewhere. That conscious is from a higher source. Some people may see it as God. We don't have to get into that this evening. I know what it is. But some people may see it as God. Some people may not see it as that. But either way, whatever your persuasion and philosophical belief may be, at the end of the day, every human being has to answer for their actions and behavior. Because what is guilt? If we didn't have to answer for our actions, why are you guilty? Why are you stressing out? You don't have control over your own mental peace and happiness. So I guess we don't have as much power as we think we do. If you're one who, but regardless of what you have physically, on a physical level, if you don't even have the power over your own brain to create peace, joy, and happiness, then you don't have anything. You don't have any power. And then what happens is we indulge in greater physical, carnal pleasures to try to find that peace. When you see those who indulge in food, who indulge in sex, who indulge in drugs, who indulge in these physical pleasures, what it is, they're running away from something. They're running away from a reality. They're trying to find pleasure, but what they're really seeking is what their conscience is telling them is to face and deal with the problem. But instead of them dealing with the problem, they run away from it to try to suppress it with weed or alcohol or some drug. That is a psychological fact. So for these individuals or those individuals to run toward greater and notice all of these affects the brain. Sex affects the brain. Alcohol affects the brain. Marijuana affects the brain. Any type of drug affects the brain. What is it about the brain? That's something we need to study. This world has yet to discover the greatest capacity of the human mind, the human brain. It is something that is infinite. So let's dive into it, shall we? When you look at it, the brain is what stimulates thought or mind. They call it brain is not mind. Mind is what creates. The brain is just the physical in the head of your body, but the mind is what actually stimulates thought. It stimulates pleasure or grief. It stimulates emotions. That's what the mind does. So what is it about psychological warfare that we're not paying attention to that is taking us away from enjoying our lives or enjoying what the fruitfulness of life? What good is it to be alive and you're living in tyranny and misery every day? What good is it to be alive? What good is it to have these monetary money things or physical things, carnal things, when your mind is so distraught and you can't find peace and happiness? What is it that we're overlooking? What is it that we're not paying attention to? First, what is your energy? What energy are you putting out in the universe? Are you paying attention to the relationships that you have? What is your contribution in that relationship? Are you one with integrity, or are you one that tell lies and tricks and try to get over on people, manipulate people? See, you have to pay a price for that, whether we understand it or not. So if you're one that engage in those behaviors, then you will experience tremendous anxiety and grief. And that's why I love God so much, because you can't play with it. You know, we can try to suppress these guilt pains or whatever with opioids or with drugs or whatever we try to, but you can't run away from it. That's why you have to keep doing the drug. You have to keep drinking alcohol. You have to keep smoking weed. You have to continue to indulge in that, because you can't get away from that reality. You have to face it. You have to face it sober judgment, sober minded. You can't face it high. You have to face these issues that you're having sober. And then from there, you can overcome it and master it. Then you won't need the drug, because the brain will naturally produce peace. It will naturally produce what you're trying to get from the drug. The drug is a temporary satisfaction, and sometimes it still don't satisfy. So why not face your issues, face your problems head on and deal with them and face them properly? But you got to have integrity. You got to understand righteous principles to fix your problems. You can't face them with lies and falsehood. You have to fix your problems with righteousness and truth. That is how we fix our problems. So when we come back to psychological warfare, what is the cause in this society? I love to study this society, because in this society, it promotes what it promotes, and it can lead to psychological detriment. So what is it about this society? When you look at the food that we eat, when you look at the laws, when you look at the information, the educational system, everything, the religion, everything. No wonder why the people are psychologically damaged. It seems as though everything is rooted in some fairy tale or some falsehood. Unless you're one of those overcomers, when you have comprehensive knowledge and you have overcome the lies and you can see between the lines and read in between the lines, then that's different. You're one of the gods. You're one of the overcomers. You have the power to master your own life and creation, so it doesn't affect you. But most people have not tapped into that, so therefore it's eating them alive. It's causing them to go closer and further toward self-destruction. That's what it is, because they don't see a way out. Most of us, we feel hopeless. We don't see a way out of this. We don't see any refuge. But it's, how could you feel that way? How could we not see this as a big test? Don't we realize that God has power over all of this, and God is testing those to see who is going to come out of this with great substance? Our job is not to bow down to this society. Our job is not to allow this society to affect us and make us as wicked as it is. It is supposed to drive us to a greater discipline, drive us to a greater righteousness and truth. That is what this was all about. So if you're one to fall beneath that, then you will perish because you failed the test. See, that's what this psychological warfare is all about. And the enemy would never want you to understand that. This enemy would never want us to put two and two together to really know what the root of this war is all about. It is a genetic war. That's true. It is a genetic war, but it also is a war over your mind, your psyche. They want your psyche. They want to be able to use your mind against you, for you to use it against yourself. So they don't have to destroy you if you destroy yourself. But how foolish do you have to be to allow an enemy to have control over your mind? And first, not to know that that is your enemy. And stop looking at pleasure as pleasure, because it's not. It's destruction. This pleasure that we look for is really physical. But the only way you will experience spiritual pleasure is by mastering the flesh, the lust of the flesh. That's the only way we will experience spiritual pleasure. And that's the greatest pleasure. No physical pleasure is greater than spiritual and mental pleasure. The only way we will tap into spiritual and mental pleasure is by overcoming the physical pleasure. You can't serve both. You have to pick one. So if you want to choose the physical pleasure, well, then you sacrifice your mental and spiritual pleasure, and vice versa. So psychological warfare stems back to your early childhood years with the lies that we've been told about Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny. All of those are small suggestions of lies that as you get older, that damage increases, because that same delusion is with you as you evolve. That delusion evolves unless you have a comprehensive knowledge and you come out of it. That is what this is all about, this psychological warfare. So what causes people to become so destructive? What causes people to become the way we are to become so obsessed with the thing that will get us removed. You are obsessed with things that will not really truly benefit you. We are obsessed with vanity. We are obsessed with trying to prove a point. We are obsessed with trying to please people. When it's okay that you want to be a friend to the people, but you don't know what pleases people. Why not be yourself? And if they're pleased by that, then let that be the case. Be your genuine, natural self. Why try to please the people with vanity or self-conceit? All of that leads to psychological damage. All of that leads to these illnesses that we have mentally, these mental illnesses. All of this can be reformed very simply. Just with more discipline and more righteousness incorporated in our lives, we can fix the mental illness in the community and in the society. It's not rocket science. It's very simple, but this enemy wants to keep it complicated so that we are confused and afraid. That's how they mastered society, by keeping the masses confused and afraid. Therefore, you depend on the very people who made you confused and afraid, because you don't know where else to go. So this is very unfortunate to see this, and to see intelligent human beings behave like this. But we have greater potential. We have greater capacity within ourselves. We are the next. When you look at creation, no animal, no bug, no other creature is greater than the human being. The human being has the ability to create and move, and has their own will and desire. No animal can do that or say that. So we are not exercising our powers properly. We're misusing our powers, and we're using it to destroy us. And we don't see it because we've been so deceived, and it's very sad to see it. But when I look at humanity, and I look at the society and those in the society, and look at the psychological damage that has been done, it roots back to just falsehood. Truth and righteousness purifies. So they just need the right information and knowledge to come out of their condition. And then they'll come back, they'll be themselves. So we have to understand that we have to really unwind and unveil everything we've been taught. If we're truly going to make it and survive on a serious level, if we're truly going to make it and survive, we have to unlearn everything we've been taught. And what's useful, you can keep it. But unlearn everything you've been taught, and be willing to be retaught, because basically everything we've been taught was designed for self-destruction. It was like a big scam, basically. Just look at it like a big scam. We just didn't know it was a scam, but just look at it as that. And that's the psychological warfare. The psychological warfare is righteousness versus wickedness, the two natures of human beings. Your ultimate intentions and motives will drive you towards psychological damage as well. What is your motive? What is your intentions in life? It doesn't matter what your race is. What are your intentions? What is your motive? What drives you in the behavior that you carry out? That's all that matters. So what is your intentions and motive? So this psychological warfare can be overcome. It takes discipline, and it takes restraint and resistance. Let's put down the physical pleasures and lust of the flesh, and start living on a more spiritual, elevated level, which is the greatest level, because there's no limit to that level. And then you tap into powers that will blow your mind when you really tap in. So we're really depriving ourselves of true life. We're not living, working a 9 to 5. Even if you're self-employed, if your mind is not on the right level, you're not living, because you're not empowered. You're not being electrified. You're on the lowest level of existence. So, we need to really reprioritize our thinking and our intentions, and then we'll start to move in the right direction. And with the help of God, we'll be successful, and we can overcome the fate that has been set before us. So thank you, YouTube family. It's always an honor and a pleasure to speak with you. Peace and blessings.